All right, you start recording. All right. Well, we're recording now. Cool.
Okay.
All right. Cool.
So you'll edit like.
Yeah, I'll edit. Yeah, I guess I'll leave some of this in. Who knows? Yeah, it might be fine.
Okay, we'll see.
But hey guys, welcome to my channel, Cayman Haven. My name is Gary. You can also call me Cayman. And today I'm joined by a special guest. Is my good friend Enoch. Hey Enoch, how are you?
Hi Gary, how you going?
Yeah.
I'm doing good.
Yeah, good, awesome. So I've invited Enoch here today because we're gonna do a sort of in-depth review of The Last of Us Part 2, and basically both Enoch and I, we played it when it got released about 2 months ago. I have so much I want to say about it. Enoch and I, we just had a conversation sort of over text. And then we just decided, how about we just, talk more about it and sort of record it for YouTube. So here we are doing this.
Yeah, here we are.
Yeah, exactly. Let's sort of explain to people who are watching this for the first time what The Last of Us Part 2. So basically The Last of Us Part 2, it's the highly anticipated sequel of The Last of Us. And it's widely considered to be like one of the best video games of all time. It was developed by Naughty Dog Studios, the creators behind the Uncharted series, which is an incredibly popular video game franchise. Let's talk about the first game, okay? And I'm gonna throw it to you, Enoch. Like, what is your relationship with the first game? How you felt about it, and then talk about sort of your expectations for The Last of Us Part 2, and did it live up to those expectations? So
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first game, I must have. So actually, I watched it on YouTube before I actually played it.
I did that as well, yeah.
Yeah, so it must have been when I was 15 or 16 when I just found out. I was watching a lot of game movies like Uncharted, and I found Last of Us. So I watched through it, and I found it was an absolute masterpiece. Even though I didn't even get to play it or anything, just the way it tells its story and everything. So I instantly fell in love with The Last of Us. And then 2 years later, I bought the game, as you can see.
Nice.
And I played the game and loved the game, and I've played it 3 times since. So yeah, I think it's The Last of Us, in my opinion, is one of the greatest games of all time, and the greatest game of this generation at least. And as a big lover of films, like The Last of Us is something that's like on par with some of the greatest films. So yeah,
it's just like a very narrative driven experience. What expectations did you have for The Last of Us Part 2, and do you feel like it lived up to it, and how you felt about it overall?
Yeah, sure. So when it got announced in 2017, my expectations, my excitement and expectations were just off the roof. Like the sequel to such an amazing game. I was a little scared, obviously, because how can they top such a masterpiece? But fortunately, in my opinion, they did, and it was an amazing game. I was so excited. I even put it in my calendar, like Last of Us, and then it got delayed twice, and just waited so long. And then I heard there's a lot, it was leaked and stuff. So I stayed away from all the spoilers, and then I played through it, and it was amazing. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's great. So I'll talk about my relationship with the first game.
Sure.
So yeah, back in 2013, a colleague at work lent it to me. And he was like, "You gotta play this game. This game's like amazing." And I've played all the Uncharted games at that point, pretty much. So I've already loved Naughty Dog. It was just sort of like, this is a completely new game and new experience. I want to see what they would bring to the table. I think the first thing that I want to talk about it is that it's really a unique depiction of the post-apocalyptic future. A lot of games that are like set in that sort of post-apocalyptic, dystopian future, just purely on a visual level, the colors are like really desaturated. Like we have a lot of grays and browns and blues, but with The Last of Us, there's a lot of like lush greenery, there's a lot of green, there's a lot of vibrant colors. And I think that made the game stand out from a visual point of view, because it's like nature has sort of overtaken the world kind of thing. And I think that was unique at the time. So I didn't love the game like as much as everybody else. I still really, really enjoyed it. I think mostly because of the relationship between Joel and Ellie. So the characters and the story is what made it like amazing.
Yeah.
And a memorable experience. I felt like with the gameplay, it was there were points where like it felt kind of repetitive and a little clunky at times.
Right.
The shooting mechanics and stuff, the gameplay wasn't as polished, I think, for me personally. And also the other thing I didn't like about the game was that I felt like it was incredibly oppressive. Like almost every person that you meet in the game is like a villain or a bad guy or somebody that you had to kill. And I think that was almost the point of the first game, in that they were trying to create like a really bleak atmosphere, because Ellie is the one that's innocent and pure, and so she needs to be protected. Therefore, everything around her is bad, and Joel needs to kill all of them, I guess, essentially. I don't disagree with people when people say that The Last of Us is a masterpiece. Like, I don't disagree. I think for me, the thing that made The Last of Us such an incredible and memorable experience is the ending. Like, I think it has one of the greatest endings I've ever like seen in a video game.
Yeah.
It redefines what you think a good ending is, in a way. Like, it's just morally complex and ambiguous. What I love the most about The Last of Us Part 2 is that it captures the spirit of that the first game's ending, but makes that the entire game. So when you're playing The Last of Us is a pretty linear experience. It's, guy has to take the girl, to somewhere, and you have to like, defeat all the bad guys along the way. And it seems pretty linear, like even just from like the thematic and the moral compass of the game is pretty linear. I got to do this, I got to protect the girl. So it's pretty straightforward. But the ending is the part where it goes from, oh, okay, this character Joel, who I thought was like, I was rooting for him as the good guy the whole time, and now he's done something questionable. And there's a sort of like moral ambiguity and complexity to that ending, where he basically killed everyone and he stopped the Fireflies from, killing Ellie, but also stopped the cure from happening. And you're sort of on the fence. Like, the ending puts you in a place where you're like, wow, what Joel did was like a terrible thing. But then you could sort of see where he's coming from. The game did such a great job of establishing the relationship between Joel and Ellie that you could completely understand why he did what he did. But that was only at the end of the game. Like, that was only at the last part of the game where it was like, wow, it's morally ambiguous. The Last of Us Part 2 is basically, that's the entire game. Like, the whole time you're playing the game, you're constantly being asked to make really difficult decisions. You're constantly being the game's constantly making you question what you're doing. You're constantly being uncomfortable, unsettled. It's really challenging material. That's why I think the sequel is amazing. Like, I love The Last of Us Part 2. I think it's a superior sequel than The Last of Us. I think it pushes the boundaries of what you think this medium can actually do in terms of narrative storytelling. It really takes the themes of the first game and expands it in like really interesting ways. And I think that's what you want a sequel to do, right? You want the sequel to push the series in the new direction, to take more risks. And boy, did they take huge risks with this one. Like, they made a lot of really bold and daring narrative decisions that honestly I have never seen, like not even a movie or a TV show attempt. Yeah, it's a huge improvement, I think, on the first one. But when I say huge improvement, I don't say it as like the first game is like bad or anything like that. I just think that this is like the Dark Knight of sequels. This is the Godfather 2, The Empire Strikes Back, where the original were great, but this is just like, the accomplishment is just monumental, what they've achieved with this one. So
I think you put it really well with how the first one sets up this whole premise and this moral ambiguity between the characters, and then the second one it kind of explodes, and everything everyone does you have to question, and it tests your own morals, and it's a great sequel.
Exactly. And I think the most memorable thing about the first game as well is just the characters and the portrayal. Just some of the best voice acting, motion capture performances I've ever seen. Like, it's been 7 years since the first game, and we've seen a lot of movies, we've seen a lot of TV shows, but we still remember Joel and Ellie as characters. Like, that's how memorable the portrayal of those characters were. And I think this one takes that to the next level. So another reason why we're making this video and hoping that we would talk about it is The Last of Us Part 2. The response has been very divisive. Lots of people either hate it or love it. And I think that is, like, I am on the side that I absolutely love this game. I've played it 3 times now. And I actually think this game really, really improves on a second playthrough. I love this game so much that like everything that people hated about this game, I kind of like. So, what about you? Where are you at in terms
I
of how you
think
feel?
I've definitely understood where the hate was coming from because I did read a little bit of the comments, and luckily I did dodge the spoilers. But I could see where it was coming from. But then when I actually played through the game and got up to the parts that people are addressing, I definitely couldn't disagree more when I clearly saw what the game's vision was and what it was trying to tell me.
Yeah.
And I think the people were so blinded by the leaks and some of the things in the game that weren't what the game was going for. They were so blinded by that they didn't see what the whole game was about. And
exactly.
So I guess us two, when we actually like played through the game and explored its themes and stuff, I think anyone would fall in love with it. I think it's just that people are so blinded by their own hatred for whatever they saw.
Exactly. So and I do think that there's an element of shock and awe. Like I do think that the developers were definitely trying to create content that would be shocking.
The game director himself even said like it'll be controversial. People will hate some of this.
Yeah, exactly.
So he knew what he was doing when he released the game. He knew people like us would appreciate it for what it was.
Who, by the way, we have to mention, it's Neil Druckmann, who he directed the first game as well. Amazing director. And then he's obviously directing this one as well. She actually brought on a second writer. Her name's Helly Gross. She wrote season 1 of Westworld. So he brought a second writer, which I actually think helps because when you're doing it by yourself, sometimes it's good to have a second opinion kind of thing. So I think I think just the story in general, everything just feels really thought out. Nothing feels like they're trying to shock you, but it doesn't feel like it's coming out of nowhere. It feels like they're definitely telling a specific kind of story, and they have themes and messages that they wanted to convey, which I feel like this game does. And I know a lot of people say that like the subject matter is heavy. It's incredibly challenging. People say that it's like depressing. Like once the game ends, you feel like, oh, I'm really depressed. I feel bad about it. I did not get that. I did not have that reaction at all. I actually thought this game was very engaging, very gripping. And yes, even though the subject matter it's a little bit bleak and darker, but I found the story so gripping that I could not put the controller down. Like I just had to keep progressing through the game just to find out what the story is, just to find out what was going to happen next.
Just to add to your point about how the directors are trying to shock you, it never feels like they're out of control. So when shock comes, it feels like it's all calculated and you can see where they're coming from. Whereas some people are saying that they're doing it just to shock you and just to, spark controversy. But I never felt that way because the writers, you can definitely see that they had it planned all along. And the shock, even though it is very shocking, to their credit, it's still from a place that like very deep down they've calculated it. They know exactly what they want to do with your emotions.
A lot of the stuff that's shocking at the start, you don't have the full context for what's happening, and I think that's by design. Like they're trying to provoke a certain reaction from you, but then you don't really know. Like there are a lot of dialogue scenes that don't really like make any sense because you don't have the full context yet. But this is why playing through a second time, you're able to sort of see where the seeds are planted, foreshadowing and stuff like that. So I think it is okay to feel like, at the start that like you're really like, you're pretty riled up about certain things or you're pretty upset at certain things. I do think that was deliberate. Like every emotion, that's the thing that I love the most about this game. Even though I didn't like how I feel, I love the fact that this game made me feel things that I wouldn't normally feel when I'm playing a game. I love the idea that you're so conflicted half the time. It's very rare to play. Most of the time you play a game, you're the good guy, you're killing bad people. And this game, there were so many moments where I don't want to do what I'm doing, but the developers, the game is forcing you to sort of push forward in the story because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make you question the things that you're doing.
Those choose your own adventure things where you can decide what happens, but then it kind of forces you to take one way and then accept the
Yeah.
consequences and the emotions and the the themes that come with that. And
Yeah.
I was just in the hands of the director. Like I was being manipulated
Exactly.
and controlled, and
Yeah.
like I was in no control of myself and what I felt. But that's what made this game so amazing. And
yeah. Like I felt like I want to be on this ride. Like I'm not questioning anything. I'm completely immersed in the game. So caught up, so engrossed, so absorbed by the story that I just want to see what happens next. And I think that's exciting. Yes, it is heavy and it's a bit dark, but I had such a good time playing it. Like I had a lot of fun. I've heard some reviews, like people say they're like, oh, this game's not fun. Like it completely breaks the definition of a video game. And I'm like, for them it's like video game is like has to be fun. It needs to make me feel good when I'm playing it. But
yeah, I think in some part it actually does break the definition of a video game. It's because it's something we've never seen before.
Yeah.
And I think people are kind of afraid of change, afraid of something unique, and they couldn't accept that it wasn't what they expected, and they didn't have an open mind, and that's what we had, and that's what we experienced, and something that was completely original, something that was completely unique.
And I think people like I just feel like, don't you want our stories and our video games to transcend the medium? Like, don't you want them to be able to tell, like, this is a mature, very mature, thought-provoking story, and I just feel very fortunate and blessed that we can have something like this on a video game, a medium that for most people it's like I'm just shooting people in the head and that's it. For a lot of people, they don't like the fact that they feel uncomfortable. They don't like the fact that they feel like they're being forced to do certain things they don't like. But those are the exact reasons why I love this game, because I feel like not many games even attempt to do that. So
let's just say it exceeded all my expectations.
Exactly,
and,
same. Yeah.
And exactly. So in terms of the technical things, it was a beautiful game as well.
Yeah, exactly. This game is gorgeous. Like,
yes,
it is so amazing. I've been to Seattle before, and the way they recreated Seattle, like, but in this sort of post-apocalyptic like depiction is amazing. Just the density and the fidelity, of the game. The fact that there's no loading time at all. Like, it's great, and you're just so immersed that's what creates that immersion. Where you're like you're just progressing through. There's no loading circle. What's even more impressive is that you see a lot of AAA titles where they release the game within a week or two. They start releasing patches to like update the gameplay and stuff. No patches with The Last of Us 2 for like the longest, I think for like a month and a half. There's no patches. This is like so polished, in terms of the visual fidelity. One thing I wanted to talk about is like the violence, which, obviously a lot of people are like really uncomfortable with the violence, but that's the reason like why I love it. And I just saw this video, this analysis video where someone took a bottle and like threw it at someone's face, and you could actually see the shards of glass in that person's face. Like after you've done that, like there's points in the game where you have like rain, like surge of water, like coming off a building or something like that. If you have Ellie standing underneath the water, like she actually shivers, There's also like breathing mechanics as well. For example, if you run like really quick, like Ellie starts to breathe really, really heavily, and that influences the animation as well.
You can tell everyone brought their A game. Like everyone who worked on this project just dedicated so much, and the level of detail and thought that got put into this, not just in the main story, just in everything, in the art, in the characters, and in the dialogue. Like just everything was like perfect. It was definitely worth that wait. That 6 months or whatever.
Exactly. The facial expressions of the characters as well, it's pretty insane. Some of the best acting performances I've seen. The characters in this game is like, they're like more memorable than some of the movie characters I've seen in movies in like the last 2 or 3 years. You know? And then in terms of the shooting mechanics, I thought the shooting mechanics was really, like the controls felt really tight. The animations felt really fluid. You never get the sense that it's clunky or like the characters are stuck. The animations just feel really lifelike and expressive.
Especially your kills, they feel so impactful, whether that's the melee kill or the gun or crossbow or anything. They feel like an actual death. Whereas in video games, it's normally, you kill and that's all. Like you don't really remember. But every single person, especially if you kill someone's friend, they actually call out their name, or like strangling
exactly.
actually takes time to strangle someone. It's not just sneak up on someone, 2 seconds later they're dead.
A lot of people just felt really uncomfortable by the fact that they had to shoot people, and they made the violence like very visceral and graphic. But that's also why I like it, because so many times you play other video games and it's just kind of like you kill a person, you headshot a person, and there's no, like, that's not how a person would die when they get shot in the head. And in this game, the killing is meant to make you uncomfortable. The killing is meant to make you go, is this fun? Like, to be fair, I had a lot of fun shooting people in the game, but I also like the fact that the game was making me feel like, how is this weighing on you when you're seeing these people kill and their friends are calling out their names, which is a really nice touch. It's just, it makes you think that, like, okay, if I only knew this person's name, would that make it harder for me to pull the trigger? And I think the game, at least for me, in my personal opinion, I felt like it achieved that. When you throw a bottle in the person's face and you see glass shards in their face as you're stabbing them, it's like, okay, like, does that make you feel a little disgusted with yourself?
I think the game does really well in kind of putting everyone in a level playing field. Like Ellie or Abby, the other person you play as, they don't feel above anyone. Everyone's just trying to survive in this world. And, like, everyone just feels like an actual human being, and so it makes the killing so much harder. And it's just that everyone's treated as a human just trying to survive. And I think the amount of world building in this game is just it's unbelievable.
So many, like, so that one, so another detail that I like about the violence is that there was a conscious effort to make the people that you had to shoot and kill feel like normal people. Whereas when you compared to the first game, I think the villains in the first game were the hunters. So with the hunters, they were made to look deliberately like evil. All the villains were like sort of big, buff, burly dudes, and it's refreshing that with this game, a lot of the people that you're forced to sort of confront in a physical alteration, a lot of them just they all look like normal people. It just makes that impact of the violence just feels so much more weightier. And for me, the violence never got gratuitous for me. I don't know. What did you feel? Did you feel like the violence ever got to the point where it was like too much for you? Or
I never felt it was too much, but just how they immerse you into feeling empathy for people you kill by calling their name, and like you can hear them dying, hear them struggle. They even plead, if they're the last one, they plead, they beg for their lives and things like that. So sometimes it's honestly hard to pull that trigger or whack them in the face or whatever. Whereas in another video game, you don't think twice about it, right?
Exactly.
Just to counter a point from what you said earlier about the first game, I think the hunters, Joel actually says to Ellie that he's been on both sides before. So I think you see just that one line. I think you see how much people will do to survive, and I think that Joel being on a hunter side and the survivor side, you just see that like anyone can be a hunter. So I guess everyone was designed like that, but I kind of, after that line, I kind of took a whole new perspective on the villains or anyone where you have to face in that game. So
in the first one, it just felt like those people that you were fighting in the first game, they felt like they were equipped to do battle. Like they felt like they were very they felt like I don't know, like a villain from a Mad Max movie or something, at times. Whereas with this game, sometimes it felt like the enemies that you were forced to encounter, it felt like they literally just held the weapon for the first time,
That's true,
and a lot of times, just before you're about to take them on, like you hear little conversations about them talking about like their life, like they're talking about their family, they're talking about like where they're gonna go next.
Someone said The Last of Us 2 is a new benchmark in accessibility in games, and someone else who was blind actually completed the whole game. Which is pretty amazing. By themselves without any help. Exactly. So I don't think the game gets enough credit for that actually, how accessible the game is.
For example, did you know that you can auto pick up all the items in the game? Like you could turn on an auto pickup mode.
Right.
And what that does is that basically any item, Ellie would just pick them up automatically by herself. Like you don't even have to like press triangle all the time to pick it up.
Right.
So I had that on my second playthrough, and it just
Okay.
made the game so much easier because she's just picking up stuff by herself. I don't have to keep tapping triangle. So yeah, I think we're in agreement that on a technical level, this is like one of the most beautiful games on a PlayStation 4. Like if this is what a Naughty Dog game looks like on this current, gen system, the stuff that they're going to do for PlayStation 5 is going to be like incredible,
Yeah.
So like I feel like this feels like a PlayStation 5 game to me at times. Like
I agree. It's ahead of its time, and I think the other day actually Joseph Gordon-Levitt said that the new medium of storytelling in the future would be video games, and through The Last of Us 2, you can definitely see like why he said that. And
exactly. So that's true. Like now it's probably a good time. Like we'll dive into spoilers and talk about some of our favorite parts of the game.
Sure.
But yeah, so basically, for you guys who are watching, like definitely go play it, right?
Yes, 100% recommend it. But you definitely have to either watch the first game or play through the first game as well, because it's a direct sequel.
Like if you are a gamer and you have a PlayStation 4, then you definitely need to experience this game. And especially if you've played the first one, I think it's definitely 100%. Worth playing. I think it's one of the best games I've ever played. All right. So the game opens with like, Joel is recapping the events of the first game to Tommy. Like this moment is great because not only is it helping you to refresh your memories of what happened in the last game, but you also see flashbacks of the hospital sequence, and then they also show you the doctor character, who is obviously going to play like a major part in the story. So I think I really like that. And then from this point onwards, you sort of play as Joel for the first time in the game. Now I want to ask you, okay, because this is like a really cool symmetry thing with the first game. Do you remember who you played as in the first game?
What do you mean? Like when you first
you first played the game as in The Last of Us, in the first game. Do you remember who you played as?
You wake up as Sarah.
Yeah.
Well, the cutscene is Sarah giving Joel his present, the watch.
Yeah. So you play as Sarah in the first game, and what happens to her? Like, and she dies, right? And so in this game, now it's as Joel, and so that's foreshadowing that he's gonna die. And then after that, he goes back to Jackson. So Jackson is this place where
you can see it's a full-on town now.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a whole community. It's expanded a lot since the first game.
Yeah.
Probably like tenfold. It was crazy. Like to see that civilization is coming back again.
Yeah. So basically I love this scene where he like goes and plays the guitar for her. I really like that scene. I like how awkward it is. Like it's like she's not really like in the mood, but he's being like an awesome. He's Papa Joel, like he's Joel is just wants to connect and bond with his sort of surrogate daughter, I guess, so to speak. But the reason why I like how it's kind of like awkward is because Ellie, you sort of don't know, because the first game ends in a way where Ellie isn't sure whether Joel is lying, and even though she says like I trust you or whatever, you can sort of see that like she's starting to like think about it, and that's why the scene is awkward when he's trying to play the guitar for her, and she's not really like, I have to wake up early the next day, and kind of she's not really like warming up to him yet. But then we see her warm up to him at the end. Do you have anything you want to say about the guitar scene or?
Not really. It's a cool mechanic actually.
Yeah.
Just to strum the guitar.
Yeah. And, which is really cool that they developed that.
Yeah.
I thought that was like a really cool thing. Yeah. You wake up 4 years later. You meet Jesse for the first time, so he's like one of the major characters in this game. Always nice to have an Asian character in the game, I guess. So yeah, he's pretty cool. And then you sort of like walk through the town, and you start to find out that there was a party that happened the night before, and some things went kind of wrong. And then you go to the bar, and then you meet this guy Seth, who apparently he did something bad to Ellie. I really like this scene because like Ellie's really angry at him. Seth, the guy, is just like trying to apologize. This scene is great because it foreshadows that Ellie holds a grudge. She doesn't forgive people easily, which plays into the themes of the game.
Just actually to add to your point about holding Ellie like you can see that she holds grudges.
Yeah.
Actually, in the first game, you can tell that she's that sort of long-term thinker. When Sam gets told off for holding the toy, and then Henry tells him, "Oh, we only keep what we want," and then you actually see that she like considers this and holds the toy and gives it to Sam. So you can see already from the first game that she's that kind of person that will like dwell on thoughts that happened maybe a while ago, and that plays really well into how she holds grudges against Seth, and then eventually Joel when she finds out. So
Which, by the way, that toy that you were mentioning, that's in her room.
Yeah, I saw that. Oh, I didn't see that, but I saw that afterwards when I was watching someone.
Yeah, like watching the Easter eggs and stuff. Yeah. So you see Abby for the first time, and I remember playing this the first time and thinking, oh my god, she's built.
That's everyone's impression. She's absolutely jacked.
She's like jacked. She's really built, and then we see sort of Owen like staring out the window. It's a mirror of another scene that happens later in the game where we're in the aquarium sequence where he like sort of is looking out the aquarium, and it's meant to be like a mirror to parallel that he doesn't actually want to be on this revenge quest that Abby is on, but he's kind of like forced onto it. So I just love some of the sort of visual symmetry of Owen looking out the window throughout the game. If you play it through the first time, you're like, oh, he's just looking out the window. But then, like playing it the second time, it like has a bit more of a context. So he takes her out, and then she sees Jackson, and I remember at the time just thinking like, who are they looking for? They keep mentioning.
Yeah. Not to mention, she also had a nightmare when you first get introduced to her. So she wakes up from a nightmare, and then Owen asks, "Oh, nightmares again." So you're already intrigued, like maybe her nightmares ties into the main story, which it does. And then we see how consistent these characters are. Where Owen, he's never invested into this revenge plot as Abby. Abby's fear of heights, and then when they say, "Oh, he must be there," I thought they were trying to rescue someone they captured, like, but obviously she was looking for someone she wants to kill and get revenge.
Exactly. I don't think they even made that explicitly clear. Like, you don't even know whether she's gonna kill him, but like. Yeah, they were using. They just made it vague, which is great. I kind of like that.
Yeah, I love that.
So Joel's death is one of the biggest controversies for a lot of people who don't really like the game.
Took me by surprise, definitely. For him to die that early. The fact that he died, I kind of saw it coming. Like, you can't just kill everyone who was involved in. A cure for this worldwide virus, and then get away with it. Like, there was definitely like people that were searching for him, and he crossed a lot of people. But when the mood changed, when he said his name was Joel,
you could really feel. First of all, I love how well directed that scene was. It's all done in one take, like from them coming into the room.
If you actually pay attention to each individual character, they all react kind of differently. I think Manny, he looks up and
he's like,
you can already see
this is the guy.
He wants to kill him. This is the guy. And I can picture every single word and expression in that scene. Especially Abby, Joel Miller. That was an intense scene.
That was really intense. So just to backtrack a little bit, when they were trying to escape from the zombie horde, and I think Tommy was the one who introduced his name. So he's like, my name is Tommy. He's Joel. And
this is my brother Joel.
This is my brother Joel. And then you see, at the time when you're watching the first time, why is she reacting? Like, she has this look on her face, like she's like, I don't know what I'm thinking. But then like playing it through a second time, it's like, that's because that's the person that she was looking for. So let's talk about the controversy. Like, so for a lot of people, Joel's death, for a lot of people felt like it was out of character. Like, they felt like he wouldn't have walked into a trap like that, or he wouldn't have said anything. How did you feel about that? Like, because I disagree with that assessment.
I actually didn't think about that when he first got caught and things. And that gives credit to how it was consistent. Like, because he's already been around civilization for 4 years.
Exactly.
Like, he's settled in. he's settled in with Ellie, settled in with his brother, and his like his distrust for people has kind of kind of weared out,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
he's been around people for 4 years, and most, like, everyone there he didn't know, and he's kind of used to trusting strangers now, um,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
especially after such an intense situation, like running away from those runners and everything. And then Abby, like, you instantly see her as a good person because, she just brought you to her
Like you
friends and
just saved her
introduced
as well. Like you didn't think
yeah,
that she was gonna do this, kind of
yes.
thing.
I don't think it was out of character at all.
Yeah. So a lot of people felt out of character because they were comparing it to the first game. I think there was a guy that was like pretending to be injured and was like yelling
Yeah, that
how,
was the
yeah,
hunters. Yeah.
those are hunters. But yeah, like you said, like it's been 4 years. Like Joel has had like he's been part of civilization for a long time. He's helped bring people in. People trust him, and also the situation that they were in was incredibly dire. They were being chased down by zombies. They had nowhere to go. He had just saved this girl, and so it's not out of character. It's just he was helping someone, and for people who didn't like how Joel's death was handled, I think people just need to embrace the fact that there's an element of tragedy over there. He started trusting people. That's how he died. Like people need to be open that there's a little bit of tragedy in there as well, because previously he survived because he was a harsh, untrusting, violent man, but now he's like this really nice and a kind person.
Yeah, like when you see his whole attitude changes after Ellie, because like at the start he yells at Tess. He's like, we're survivors, this is how we survive. We don't take stupid tasks on, like, how far are we going to take this, how far are we going to smuggle Ellie in. And then after Tess kind of dies, he goes on this whole journey, and he's changed by the first game as well. So it's kind of like, it's not definitely not out of character for 4 more years with Ellie to be like more kind, more trusting of people, and not, his goal isn't just survival anymore. It's more like taking care of Ellie and this town that he runs with his brother. So
exactly. And also, like, obviously he didn't actually spend time with Ellie for the last 4 years, as we find out tragically that they had a fractured relationship. So I do think you're allowed to feel like, okay, would Joel have you're allowed to question whether, like, would Joel have fallen into this trap so easily? Would he have been duped so easily? I think you can question that at the start, but then as you find out through the game that he's actually trying to become the man that we would want him to be, like this kind, caring father, and he was trying to be that. He was trying to get back onto Ellie's good side again because they had this fractured relationship. So, and I think that's why Abby being the one who betrayed him, essentially, I think that is why it makes it so much more tragic, because he just saved this girl. He, think about it from Joel's perspective, right? He's had a fractured relationship with Ellie. Now he's seeing this girl by herself who's in need of help. He helps her. She's maybe about the same age as Ellie, maybe probably a few years older, Do you know what I mean? And so I read this interview with Neil Druckmann, who said, like, that was the person he was not counting on. He was sizing up everyone in the room except for Abby. He didn't realize that Abby was going to be the one that would betray him, even though he, like, saved her. So I think there's an element of tragedy there, and it was meant to be a betrayal to us. If you're really upset, which I was, I don't know about you, but I cried when Joel died.
Yeah,
I think everyone else did as well. I think it's meant to feel like a betrayal. It's meant to feel like you are meant to be really upset when that happens. But yeah, and then another thing is, again, like I was saying before, like these people, they don't look like bad guys, The people in the room with him, like Nora's there, Manny's there, Owen and Mel, like they don't look like bad people. They look like normal people. So that's why it's easy for Joel to just be like, oh yeah, this would have been fine, like we're just gonna hide out in this area until the storm ends.
I think the main criticism besides that is having to play as Abby afterwards, like after you kill Joel.
Yeah.
And I think that's where most of the hate comes from, is that you have to play as a character that just killed one of the characters that you love.
Yeah.
But I think, like, for that argument, like, I can counter that by saying that, everyone is trying to have their place in this world, including people that just like everyone's equal. As I said, like before, everyone's a survivor, and having to play as Abby, we see so many parallels, so many like themes and things like that. And I think playing as Abby myself, I didn't really enjoy it as well until a few hours in as well, because it's just like she just killed Joel.
Yeah. So there's a part early on where Ellie and Dina are on patrol in the snow. And then along the way, they like hit up a supermarket. They see like a dead moose where like the insides have been like gored out. I will tell you something about the moose later. Okay. Yeah, so I'll tell you. So yeah.
Is this the one where Dina throws up at, or is this different?
No, this is a different one. This is like right at the very start. It's like right next to a supermarket, and then they basically have to go into the supermarket to clear out all the zombies. So later on in the game, you have that great flashback with young Ellie and Joel at the dinosaur museum, which is like one of my favorite scenes in the game.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. And then there's a moment here where she goes into a different building by herself. Do you remember this? Yeah. So this is the part where you see there's like it's basically like a natural museum part where you see like natural animals, so it's not dinosaurs anymore. And there is a display of a moose.
Right.
Surrounded by wolves.
Yep.
So
I think
I wanted to bring back that moose is symbolic of Joel.
Yeah. And the
right, because he gets attacked by wolves. And so that's why at the start of the game, when you and Dina see like the dead moose, that's foreshadowing of Joel's death.
Right.
You and Dina on horseback, you go to Seattle. There was like this open area where you can like go into different buildings and stuff and get collectibles and things. We don't really get like an open area part like that in a game after that.
Yeah, I think Seattle was a little bit tedious for me because there were a few repetitive parts, like opening the gates, having to find the code, using the wires, chucking it over fences, trying to find fuel. That was kind of repetitive for me, but the actual area itself was absolutely gorgeous and chilling. Actually, just this whole city just completely empty, overrun by grass, and you can get ambushed by clickers and runners anywhere you go.
Yeah. One of the like scenes in this open area is the Ellie playing the Take on Me cutscene which by the way you could completely miss. Did you get it the first time or?
Yeah, I got it.
I didn't get it the first time. I completely missed it, and it wasn't until like I was watching someone else play, I was like, holy shit, I missed that part. Yeah. And it was like, and it's a great moment because she's playing the guitar and you see like Dina's like slowly like falling in love with her. So the TV station is cool because when you get there, you're thinking, you see all these dead bodies of the WLF people, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, did Tommy do all this? But then you notice there are arrows in their bodies, and it's like, well, Tommy doesn't use arrows. And then when you go in there, that's when you find out that you see all these bodies like hanging up if they're like disemboweled essentially. And at the time, you still really don't know what's going on. That's a cool scene because that's how they introduce the Seraphites.
Yeah, there's also a recording, like those tape recorders like from the first game. There's one in there as well.
Yeah.
It talks about, the scars are coming and you're like, oh, who's the scars and things like that. And then later we find out who they are.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the part that I really like because when you go through the TV station, when you try to leave the TV station, there's a group of guys that like come into the TV station to like, and then they start surrounding the place and start looking for you. So I knew which door they were going to come in through. So I put a bomb. Right. I put a bomb in from the door. So I put two of those bombs there. And as soon as they came in, like 7 or 8 of them, they all just exploded and they all just died, which was great. You go to this place called Hillcrest, and so I believe this is the part where you start killing dogs for the first time, which is something that a lot of people hated for good reason, I think. But how did you feel about the fact that this game like forces you to kill the dogs?
I think the game by then already immersed me so much that you're putting yourself in place of those like of the people, especially Ellie, who's like a survivor as just like anyone, and In that situation, if a dog's gonna maul you to death, like you gotta kill a dog to survive. And
Yeah, exactly.
in those situations, that's all I could think of was to survive. And
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
anyone's using any advantage they can get. If that's dogs, then
Yeah.
like they'll use dogs.
Yeah,
And if you're gonna get killed by a dog, then I'm pretty sure you want to shoot the dog.
Yeah. And for me, it was more like we've forgotten that dogs are they can be used, for what's the word I'm looking for? Finding
Tracking?
people, tracking. Yeah, tracking. Yeah, like this is how dogs would be used in a military situation, And I think people just forget that dogs are so dangerous sometimes. Like they can like chew your face off essentially, which is what happens to Ellie like numerous times. And I'm not gonna lie, I shot every dog that I encountered during this game.
Right.
Just because like they were just, as soon as they got in their way, they're dead. I know people are like upset, but that's the thing I don't understand. People have no problems shooting people in the face, but suddenly killing a dog is like,
right,
like suddenly out of bounds, So yeah, I don't get that. I like the fact that I felt uncomfortable about it. So during the flashback at the dinosaur museum, you see the seed of distrust between Ellie and Joel. And we start to see how their relationship is slowly falling apart. We have a second flashback later on with Joel and Ellie again. And this time it's like Tommy's training Ellie how to use the sniper. It's funny because I've heard people say that like, oh, you did all this training with the sniper, but you don't actually snipe as Ellie at any given time.
right.
But that's not how I read that scene when he was training Ellie. I think it was establishing that Tommy was really good at being a sniper.
Yeah, exactly.
Which
and then
that comes back later, you know. But yeah, you see the sort of like the truth eating away at Ellie. Like she starts to question like, oh, are there any other people like me who's like immune to this disease and what actually happened at the hospital, and Joel's just not telling.
And you see the couple that ran away from the town that's dead, and then she's like, I could have saved them, like if they got the cure from me, they would have been alive. And you see that guilt just eating away at her. And she wants to know what really happened, and she knows like by now she knows something's up. Like she's like, tell me the truth, Joel. And he's like, that is the truth, I couldn't do anything. But
exactly. So
Great.
like every death
That was
weighs
a great
heavily. Yeah. In the final flashback, Joel finally reveals the truth to Ellie, that he killed everyone at the hospital in order to save her. It's great because when you've played the game for the first time, you think that when Joel dies, right, you're thinking to yourself, oh, Ellie and Joel had such a great relationship together, because our impression of their relationship is based on the first game. But then these flashbacks do such a great job of fleshing out that no, they didn't actually have a great relationship in the last 2 years, because she found out about the truth and it fractured their relationship. So it just adds that element of tragedy to his death, knowing that she didn't reconcile with him. So
I think the entire game is based on the lack of reconciliation that she kind of didn't get with Joel. And that's the entire storyline. And I think it's very powerful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so then we go back to the theater, and what's sad about this scene is that like Ellie was ready to go home. Like she was ready to leave Abby behind. She didn't find Abby, but she was ready to like, let's go back to Jackson. And then Abby shows up and kills Jesse. Like I remember at the time being so upset, like watching this scene for the first time, because like Abby, I really hate you right now. I really, really hate you. And you're playing as Abby for the first time.
Yeah.
Which, like, obviously, I don't know, I've seen a lot of reaction videos and people were like cursing and being like, fuck Abby, I don't want to play as her, she's a bitch, and all that kind of stuff. And what was your reaction when you played as her? Like, I'm curious because I didn't have that reaction.
Not as extreme, but I'll say that I didn't enjoy that game decision at the start. Like, I was like, this person just killed Jesse and more importantly Joel, and now I have to play as her. I don't know how long I have to play as her. I don't really care about you right now because I hate you. And that's the general reaction from everyone. But after a while, you kind of you see why the game put you there, and it was an experience.
Exactly. For me, I'm just like, I don't know. I was surprised that people were like, yes, I didn't want to play as her as well, but I think I was just more, just sort of impressed that the game was going to make me do this. Like, the game is actually going to make me play as the person who killed Joel. Like, wow, this is incredible. And I guess I just admired that decision. That's why I was okay with it. I was like, all right, like, you've got me now. Take me where you want to go, you know? Like, I trust the game to, you know, lead the way. So I didn't have that sort of reaction. I was just kind of like, I want to see how this plays out. You wake up in the stadium sequence, which I have to say is one of my favorite parts in the game. Like, how amazing is that stadium sequence?
That was cool, yeah. And like, it's something that would like realistically happen. Like, civilization would like use up these structures that used to be for something else to, you know, live in. And like, seeing Abby have her room like on one of the VIP boxes or whatever, that was so cool.
Yeah, exactly. Like, she had one of the VIP boxes. Like, when you see the door, like, it has their names on it, Manny's name and Abby's name. And this is when we start to like get an idea of what Manny and Abby's relationship is, like their friendship. They're like best friends. And then then you meet Mel. You find out that like Abby and Mel have had like a bit of a fractured like friendship since Joel like died. So basically you start to find out that like Abby's decision to kill Joel is starting to cause like friction between her and her friends. Like, it's not all like we did this revenge mission and, you know, that's done. And it's really interesting to see the parallels between Ellie and Abby, like starting from this point onwards, because you've got Ellie who's now on a revenge mission and he's trying to accomplish it, but then you've also got Abby who's already accomplished the revenge, and now we're seeing the aftermath of that. So I thought that was like really interesting. And then you go through the stadium. Like, I love the fact that they use the field as like that's where they plant their crops and grow their livestock and stuff. So that's like really cool. Now I have to say I love this game a lot, okay? But there is one flaw. There's like one thing that I didn't like about it, okay?
Right.
And it's the fact that with Ellie, you use a knife, right? You use a knife when you're like stabbing people and stuff, like when you do stealth sneak attacks. With Abby, you have to constantly craft shivs.
Yeah.
And that makes absolutely no sense to me, because you would think that she would be much better equipped than Ellie, right? Because she's from the WLF. They literally have an armory. You could have gotten yourself a knife. Like, you could have gotten a military knife. Why are you picking up like broken scissors and crafting shivs? Like, it just makes no sense to me as a...
Yeah, I think that's what I thought as well. And I think a lot of people thought, like, why she doesn't have a knife? And it gets annoying at times.
Yeah, it just makes no sense. It just felt like, at the end of the day, the story that we experienced, it's still a video game at the end of the day. So there's just some like gamey stuff in there. But that was like my only like one legit
I think
flaw.
they just really wanted to contrast Ellie and Abby in their, not just their personality or storyline, but their gameplay as well. And that's how they wanted to differentiate it, which I think was kind of just not the best decision.
Yeah, exactly. Abby goes to find Owen. She gets captured, and that's when we get introduced to two of my favorite characters in the game, Yara and Lev. Lev is legit like one of my favorite characters in the game. Like, I think Lev is like really cool. And when they get introduced, this is when we start to see the parallels to Joel and Ellie again. Like, Abby and Lev is essentially like their dynamic is starting to mirror Joel and Ellie's dynamic, where she's the protector and he's the kid, you know. I think she's about the same age as Ellie as well. So I don't know, I just love the symmetry of like Abby kills Joel, but then ironically she starts becoming Joel in sort of a way. So this is where that story sort of like begins, and I kind of like that. And we have the Owen and Abby love scene.
Oh yeah.
Which, I don't know, a lot of people were like, I don't know, there was just so much negative response to that love scene, but I thought that the love scene was great. I don't know about you.
Right.
As in great as in like, here we have this like really muscular like female character, a character who has a body shape that's unusual for the video game medium. and they all have scars. Right. She's got a rope like scar around her neck and stuff, and we get to see what her actual body, like a muscular body, looks like in the love scene. So I just like the fact that they went for it, you know? They just, I don't know, I think we should applaud the game for like showing different types of like body types, and also showing, not shying away from the toll of the violence that it takes on their bodies, you know?
Yeah, I didn't think about that when I was went through the scene, but I feel like that scene was definitely in place. Like it was called for. Like I expected that as soon as she walked in there. And he was drunk. Like and I think it stayed really consistent with like how they would act in that situation. So it's just so well written.
Feelings, those mixed emotions, those anger just sort of came together, and the love scene just felt, it captures that sort of raw emotion that they both have, the complicated relationship that they had, because they used to be together but they're not anymore. I don't know about you, but I felt like there was some heaven and hell imagery happening from the Skybridge sequence to the hospital sequence.
Right.
Because the Skybridge is like, it felt like a heaven, like they're descending up, right? And she's got fear of heights, and there's a lot of like, you see like all the symbols of the Seraphites like on the bridge and stuff. So there's some religious imagery that we're going there, and then the fact that you end up in the hospital, which is like, it's almost like a hell, like a nightmarish sequence, right? And
that's an interesting thought.
So, and it's basically, and she goes back to the hospital, which is, the hospital is where it's not the same hospital. I guess the hospital is where her dad dies. And so it almost feels like she's going back to the hospital to confront her demons, and the Rat King is sort of like a manifestation of all the demons that she's facing. Plus you've got the vibe of a hospital setting, and also the effect of the red strobe lights as well. So let's talk about the really creepy and scary boss fight in there. Do you have much to say?
That was scary. They actually referenced, like, foreshadow it, I guess. They said like this was where the first outbreaks happened. So we know that this place was the longest like time infections have grown, and in the first game we know that bloaters are because of like years of infection. It's not unexpected that we see a Rat King, which is like decades of infection.
And we get this amazing sniper sequence, which is like one of my favorite parts in the game.
Man, you just hate that sniper.
I know, right? Because
so annoying.
I remember playing this part and being like, who is this sniper guy? They make you feel really angry and really frustrated. Abby and Manny, and you're trying to find this guy, and you're like, fuck this guy. You know, I want to find him, I want to kill him. And then when you get that, it's freaking Tommy. And I just remember just being really surprised by that reveal.
I actually kind of beat Tommy as soon as he does like that technique that he taught Ellie earlier, where he shoots next to the, like, he makes a sound with the bullet to try and like lure the infected to attack Abby and Manny. That was a really nice touch. So I was like, hang on, like this might be Tommy, and then like we find out it actually was.
That's what I love about this game, that like it takes moments like that and it's like twists it, you know? It makes you feel a certain way, and then once you get to the end, it's like, oh my god, this is a character that I like, you know?
That sequence was like honestly amazing. Just like it was like a build up to a massive battle.
Yeah, exactly. Like
a Game of Thrones type of thing, or like even Endgame, like just a huge build up to this war between the wolves and the Seraphites. And then we have this little set piece where you're riding through, you know, like on a horse, and then you have to kill Seraphites and wolves, and that was like a really kind of confronting thing where you're killing your own people, but you're also killing Lev's people, and it's like what a sequence. And I just like the backdrop of the Seraphites and the WLS fighting each other, because it felt like there's like a pointless war that's happening, and it almost sort of emphasizes the pointlessness of Ellie's revenge mission, so to speak. I just like that as the backdrop, you know, and you as the character are just like sort of caught in it.
When you go back to the theater, now you're playing as Abby.
Yeah.
And you are playing as Abby trying to fight Ellie. What did you think about that?
Oh
Like,
man,
when you...
I was having to kill Ellie, and that was just so hard for me. Like, because Ellie's someone you love to,
Yeah.
and like to hurt her, to punch her and shoot
Yeah.
her. It was just so brutal.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people I saw just like deliberately died to Ellie a few times just
Yeah.
because you're just like, I can't hurt her, but
Yeah.
got through it. It was hard, but it was a great kind of like boss battle.
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Ellie.
Yeah.
And you see her use all the techniques you use
that
when you
you've
play as
upgraded
Ellie.
her for. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so like
Yeah.
putting down traps and throwing bricks and things like that, she does. Yeah, and then we see Abby nearly kills Dina. And then you have Lev at the last second saving Dina, telling her that enough is enough.
First of all, I love the fact that you're playing as Abby and I didn't want to play as Abby. I was like, this game is actually going to make me fight Ellie. And I just love that feeling, that how conflicted I was with that. The second thing I love about it is it establishes that Ellie, as a boss, is a badass. Like, she is a tough boss to defeat. And I think that's what playing as Abby accomplishes. It gives you like a perspective of Ellie. Like, she is awesome, and I just love the fact that I love Ellie. She's a badass at this moment, but I also kind of hated her because I'm forced to play as Abby and I have to defeat her in order to keep the story going, because if I die, the story will stop, will end.
Yeah.
I really like the farmhouse sequence because it felt, I don't know, something about it just felt like a dream sequence, and I was hoping it wouldn't be a dream sequence.
I honestly did feel like a dream sequence, just because how surreal it was, and one thing was that I honestly thought that this was the end of the game. A lot of the criticism was addressed at the ending. If it ended like that, I wouldn't feel satisfied or wouldn't feel complete. So I did feel like it was the end, and then luckily it wasn't the end.
Yeah. So basically so Tommy comes back, right? And I think at this point, a lot of people are like, well, I thought he was dead. Like, you think he's like died twice already. So Tommy basically eggs Ellie on. You have to do this.
Yeah.
You have to go on this mission. You have to kill it. A lot of people felt like that was like, wait, they did, not only did they not like Tommy for what he did, but they also felt like it was out of character. How do you feel about that?
I don't know. I think Tommy doing that was a little bit out of, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it wasn't to the point that it ruined like what I perceived Tommy was like, or like the immersion of the game. I just feel like they used him as a device to show to you that, Ellie still can't let go of her demons. Like, she has to get Ellie, and it has to get Abby, and in order to do that, they used Tommy to like guilt trip her to do it. Whereas, like, I would have imagined her to like come up with this herself and not having to get guilt tripped by Tommy. So I do feel like it's a little bit out of character, but in the game, I was more surprised by the fact that he survived the bullet to the head.
I think
than that point. But in retrospect, I feel like it was a little bit out of character.
Yeah. For me, at the start, I was like, well, this feels a little out of character. Like, why would he do this? But then I feel like Tommy is the most tragic person in this game. Okay, and I'll explain what I mean by that. Because at the start of the game, Tommy doesn't want to go on a revenge mission.
Yeah.
But Ellie wants him to. Okay.
Yeah.
In fact, she's the one that guilt trips him into going on the revenge mission.
Yeah.
All right. He gets injured during the sniper battle, right? He falls into the sea. And then when he comes back to the theater, he gets shot in the right eye by Abby. And then when he comes back to the farmhouse sequence, his wife has left him.
Yeah.
Essentially. And so he's a broken man, essentially. Like, I think, and I think he's meant to be a cautionary tale for Ellie. He is what Ellie would be if she pursued on the revenge mission. Like, he's the reason why Ellie shouldn't be doing what she's doing. I think he mirrors what would happen if Ellie made the wrong decision.
Yeah.
And so by the end of the game, when he's like lost his right eye, he's got a limp because he was shot by an arrow through the knee.
Yeah.
His wife has left him. His brother is dead. he has nothing to hold on to. So him holding on to that revenge mission feels like that's in character for him.
Yeah, that's a fair analysis. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's a shell of his previous self
Yeah.
now. You know, it's like he's a broken man.
Yeah.
Tommy, by the end of this game, has lost everything. So the revenge is all that he has left, which is really sad and tragic. And the worst part is she knows. Ellie knows she guilt-tripped Tommy into the revenge mission, which is why later on she leaves Dina and JJ to go find Abby again, because she feels somewhat responsible for what happened to Tommy. But yeah, overall, what did you think about the ending?
That ending was brutal, definitely brutal. Again, a lot of, but I think very, very poetic ending.
Yeah.
Definitely just ending that cycle of revenge. And
yeah.
she gets last flashback to Joel, just as she's about to drown Abby, she hit her all-time low, and then she realizes that saving Abby is actually more important.
Yeah, exactly. I think for me it was more like she lets Abby go essentially, and Abby and Lev. If you played the game through the end and you go to like the menu screen, you see that they've actually made it all the way to Catalina, which is where the Fireflies are supposed to be. And a lot of people were like, I don't really want Ellie to go on this revenge mission, you know? Like, I don't want her to go. She should have just stayed in the farmhouse. But if she didn't go, then she wouldn't have saved Abby and Lev, you know?
Yeah.
So I think I just like that sort of the irony of that.
That's why it's so poetic.
Yeah, it's just kind of like her losing her fingers and not being able to play the guitar again. I just thought that was like a very powerful moment, because her journey has cost her this connection that she had with Joel. I love the flashback sequence, that final flashback sequence on the porch where he's like drinking the coffee with like the mug, and they're talking, and then that's when, you know, she's like really angry and she's like all swept up in emotion, but then she says, I'm gonna forgive you. And then you just see like Joel just like starts to break down, but he's still holding back the tears, and I cried when that happened.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I know a lot of people just felt like the ending made them feel like really depressed, or felt like she's lost everything, kind of thing. But I don't know, I found the ending surprisingly hopeful. What interpretations of the ending do you have?
So basically, that all that hatred Ellie felt for Abby, it was actually externalized. It was an externalized reflection of like Ellie and Joel's relationship. Like she hated Abby because of the fact that she couldn't reconcile with Joel. Like that's where all those emotions are built up, and she pushes it all into this hatred for Abby. But in reality, it's just that like the chance to reconcile with Joel was gone. Yeah. And that's why she's so angry.
Yeah.
And the real pain she's like trying to avoid is kind of covered by this like revenge plot, basically. So she's trying to forget this regret and guilt she feels for how she in his last years. By going this journey and killing and trying to kill Abby.
Exactly.
And once she realizes that, like, you know, forgiving Abby, she finally comes to terms with Joel, and she finally gets that peace, and it costs her her fingers, it costs her her friends. And she ends up alone, which is kind of like, it's like, I would say that's pretty depressing. Like, she her biggest fear was ending up alone, and at the end she ended up alone. She ended up not being able to
play the guitar again.
What reminded her of Joel.
So for me, the way I read the ending was, it was more it was like, so the reason why she's gone on the revenge quest is because she feels like she owed Joel something. They were about to reconcile together, but that moment was taken away from her by Abby. So and the game establishes that she wanted to die. She wanted to sacrifice her life in order to become a cure. but Joel took that away from her. So I think the game, it's trying to explore the idea of agency of a character, and her agency was taken away the first time by Joel. That's why she was so mad, because she felt like there was no purpose for her. If she didn't die, her death was meant to mean something, like, and she felt like that purpose was gone because Joel took it from her, and that's why she couldn't forgive him. But then when she finally was able to forgive him, she lost him, and now she feels like there's no other purpose in her life anymore. And so she takes on the revenge quest as a way to, like you said, externalize her frustrations and her guilt. She's so riddled by guilt that she feels like the only way for her to continue loving Joel is by killing the person that murdered him. And that's why she's on this mission. That's why she has PTSD. She has survivor's guilt, you know? And so she goes on this mission to go kill Abby. And then I think for me, even though, yes, she loses her fingers, she loses that connection to Joel, she's alone at the end of the game. But the reason why that ending is hopeful to me is because she finally lets Joel go. She's finally able not just to forgive him, but she's finally able to walk out of his shadow, because Joel's shadow looms so large over Ellie and over this game that she wasn't able to escape it. She feels like her purpose was so intertwined with Joel. So leaving the guitar behind and kind of losing her fingers in the process, I think it allows her to rediscover herself. She's now able to walk in a new direction without Joel, you know?
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why I saw the ending as a little bit hopeful, because I felt like, yes, even though she lost this person that we all love, Papa Joel, but now she can find her own path without Joel's shadow looming over her now. Now she can go and do the things that she can walk in a new direction. Where she's going, what she's going to end up doing, we don't know, but I think that's like hopeful to me.
Yeah. I think it was also hopeful for me. She saved them and she brought them to the fireflies. She brought them into the light again. And it kind of was really poetic that, you know, she lost everything, but she also kind of provided something for these two people that went through the same journey as her and Joel. And and you made a good point about how, you know, the shadow of Joel is finally gone, and she can move on. And even though she's alone, you know, she's starting anew, she's starting fresh, and we don't know what happens with her, but you know,
exactly.
It's another great ending to.
I think this ending is on par with the first one. I think this ending is just as memorable as the first one, because you really, for those people who like feel like it's really depressing, like I get that, but if you dig deep enough, there's hope in it. You know, there's hope in the ending, because all this time, Ellie's purpose in life was, she felt like her purpose was, I need to die so that I can become a cure. And when that was taken from her, Joel became sort of like the second purpose, right? And when he was taken away from her life, her purpose was the revenge.
Yeah.
And now that the revenge is like, she didn't kill Abby at the end, she feels like she's able to find her purpose is not just to die now. Now she can go on living. Now she can go on living with the second chance that Joel provided her. Because that's what's so beautiful about it, right? That Joel saved her. Joel saved her because Ellie was Joel's second chance at life. In the first game, he was living, but he wasn't really like, he was a cynical man. And Ellie gave him a second chance at life. And that's why he saved her. He wanted to give her a chance to live. He wanted to tell her that just because you didn't die, you didn't become a cure, it doesn't mean that your life didn't have any meaning. Like, your life brought so much meaning to me. You brought so much meaning to me as a person. So I think it's about her trying to reconcile how important she was to Joel, and therefore remind her that her life is worth more than just being the cure for humanity. You know, now she can find a new purpose, and I think that's hopeful. I think that's incredibly.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. The people who mostly like have a lot of complaints with the game, I think they could be lumped into a few categories. One, the people who complain about this game are people who just played the game once. All right. I really need to like stress, like, you need to play it through at least a second time, because every dialogue exchange that happens, it sheds a new light on all the conversations that they're having. The fact that at the start of the game, when you as Ellie hang out with Dina, and she's talking about how like, oh, I'm going to be watching a movie with, Joel. That takes on so much meaning because they've reconciled. And that was supposed to be their first night together, reconciling as, father and daughter. But as we played through the first time, it's just, oh, Joel and Ellie are just going to watch a movie. We know they're good, You didn't have that like context.
Yeah.
The second is a lot of people play through this game in like a short span of time. Like this is not a game that you want to rush through in like the first like 2 days. It took me like a week to finish this game. How long did it take you?
A week, I think. Yeah.
I think a week, yeah. Because you really need to sit through it. You really need to sit with it. This game makes you contemplate about the decisions that the characters are making, the stories, where the story is going, what its ideas are. It's thought provoking in that way. So
yeah.
I don't really want to. Obviously there's complaints. I don't know how much we want to get into it, I guess. But one of the complaints that I've heard like frequently is that people say they don't care about the characters, which, I don't really feel like the game is trying to make you care about the characters. I think the game is trying to give you a second perspective of what these characters are. Like people say that, oh, I don't care about Mel, or I don't care about Owen, or I don't care about Manny. But I really don't feel like the game is trying to make you care about them. I think
I completely agree.
Yeah, it's not. They're not going to try to make you care about them more than you care about Ellie and Joel, because that's a relationship that we've brought with us to the second game. I think it's just trying to present a different side. Like Manny, we find out later that he's actually kind of like, he spits on Joel's dead body, but later on we find out that he's just Abby's best friend, and we find out that he really wants Joel's death because he's Abby's best friend. And then I think Mel is probably like the only character who's like, she isn't given as much to do. But she's basically calls out on Abby's bullshit, essentially. And then you have Owen. I think Owen is like another great character as well, where it's like, he's just a nice guy who's sick of the violence and he just wants to move on. You don't necessarily have to care for Abby, but if at the end of the game, when Ellie's plunging her knife into Abby, and a part of you is like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to kill Abby, or I feel uncomfortable about this. If it makes you feel bad for Abby just a little bit, I think the game has already succeeded, in my opinion. So, and then the other thing is like, I've heard people say like, why is Abby helping Lev all of a sudden? Like why did she met him for 3 days, and like why would she give up everything for Lev? But the truth is, Abby's not helping Lev because she's won over by Lev. She's helping Lev because she feels so guilty by Joel's death. Did not bring her the closure that she wanted. In fact, if anything, it's destroyed the relationships around her. So meeting Lev was like her finally finding something to fight for, something to be protective about. And so it helps to, like, she even says in the game that it was meant to lighten up the load a little bit, because she just felt like Joel's death was hanging over her so much that she was able to commit herself to a positive cause again. That's why she's drawn to Lev. She's not drawn to Lev just because of his like personality or his character. She's helping Lev because she feels like it helps her in a way. Do you have anything else to say about this game other than the fact that it's amazing and we all should play it?
Let's talk about if we'd like to, see a sequel or something.
Yeah. Let's do that. Shall we?
Yeah.
Would you like to see a sequel? How do you feel?
I don't know personally. I think this game leaves me wanting more, definitely. Like, I mean, if it's another masterpiece of writing from Naughty Dog, I'd happily accept another sequel.
Yeah.
Like, they can do anything at this point because, we've kind of closed the doors on everything we've done from the first and second game. So it's kind of like, where will they take this story to? And like, one of the two main characters is gone now. So it's like, it's not as, I'm not sure if they'll do a sequel, but I'm willing to accept if they do another one, and hopefully it's just as good, if not better.
Yeah. I think now it's funny because with the first game, I didn't necessarily want to see a sequel, but I was happy if the story just ended there because I felt like that.
Right.
that felt like a complete game. That felt like, that
Yeah.
ended well. That was a great ending. How could they top this? And somehow Naughty Dog topped it. They managed to make
Yeah.
a game that was better than the first one, with in my opinion, a great ending as well. And I actually now would like to see a sequel.
Okay.
I actually would like to see a Last of Us Part 3. And I think I trust that Naughty Dog would be able to create brand new characters and make us care about them. I think they've earned that cred, just because I think some of the acting performances in this game, it's just so phenomenal. On every level. You've got Troy Baker as Joel, Ashley Johnson as Ellie, and Laura Bailey as Abby, who basically got a lot of crap, right, for playing the character. And it's totally not her fault at all, because obviously it's just a story. She's amazing. All the performances are great. So yeah, I trust that they would be able to create memorable characters. Now, if they were going to make The Last of Us Part 3, I would like to see more of Ellie, I feel like her story is not done. Maybe bring back some old characters as well. Maybe bring back Bill from the first game, we could have Ellie and Bill hanging out maybe, and try to recreate that Joel and Ellie relationship with Bill maybe. I don't know. That'd be nice. I would like to see a time jump maybe, I'm not predicting anything. I'm just saying basically what I would like to see in the sequel.
Yeah, but basically, I was saying, the sequel might be JJ's story.
Exactly. I would like to see a time jump where maybe maybe it's 14 years later, and we have JJ who's now the same age as Ellie in the first game. He's 14, and it's about JJ and Ellie maybe, and Ellie is in the Joel role now, she's caring for JJ. So we would see them, so something like that. I don't know. I'll trust Naughty Dog in coming up with a great story. Trust in Neil Druckmann, who it's.
We have the TV show.
Yeah, TV show.
We have the TV show coming.
We have the TV show coming. So
I'm not sure. Do you know if that's going to be the original events? Or?
Part of me I don't want it to be another Joel and Ellie again. I don't want them to recast real people,
same.
just because I feel like the characters are so
same.
memorable that it'll be it just wouldn't make sense to. We already have the video game characters and they're so memorable and distinguishable. Those performances are so seeped in to those characters that I feel like if you cast real people to play those characters, we would just be comparing, they would never live up to, But I think I like it. I would like it if it's more like a separate event, separate stories, separate characters. But Joel and Ellie exist in the same universe for obvious reasons, and maybe we would hear about them. We would hear someone have a line about there's a man and a woman, there's a man and a little girl trekking. We saw them trekking or something. There's a line from a character that says that, something like that. That would be interesting. But I don't want Joel and Ellie. But apparently that's what they're gonna do. Apparently they are gonna do Joel and Ellie. So, oh well. Well, Neil Druckmann's gonna be behind it. So yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think this is Game of the Year? Is this Game of the Year for you?
I don't play that many PS4 titles, or I'm not really keeping up with the games, but I'm not even sure if Cyberpunk is coming up
this year. Yeah,
but definitely Game of the Year for me.
Game of the Year, for me as well. I don't, like I said, I don't play many games as well. In general, I don't play many games in general. So I think this is definitely Game of the Year, bar none, no contest. I feel like this will be if this will be Game of the Year for the next 5 years, potentially. I just can't. The decisions that they made, the direction that it took, they just took a lot of risks with this. And sometimes games would take risks, but the execution would be really bad. But I think this game commits to the vision and the story that was trying to tell, and I think they executed perfectly. I agree. Yeah, I think this is almost a perfect game for me. I think for you, one of the flaws that you said like the Abby section was a little too long.
Yeah, it sometimes a bit tedious.
Yeah. Whereas for me, playing through the second time, I actually think it had to be that long. Like like her section had to be that long because the game's trying to communicate that Abby's a resilient character. Like when she commits to something, she won't stop until she get it. Obviously, that's through her mission with Joel. The fact that even after 4 years, she still wants to go with she's not forgetting about the revenge at all. She hasn't forgotten about finding Joel. And I think those levels, the reason why they're so long is because we needed to see how far she was going to go in order to see Owen and protect Yara and Lev. And we needed to see that the longer and more grueling her missions were, the more that's establishing her character, that she's willing to go to the ends of the earth once she commits herself to something. So I think that's why it had to be as long as it needed to be, just to and the game forces you to sort of go through her character, just to see that wow, she's willing to do all of this. And so that's my defense, I guess, for how long the length of the game. I don't actually feel that it doesn't actually feel that long when you play it the second time, especially once you have like all your upgrades and stuff. So but it is game of the year. I know there's like people like, did you play Ghost of Tsushima?
No, I didn't.
I didn't play. I've heard a lot of people say that's a contender for game of the year as well, but I don't know. I've seen some gameplay. I obviously haven't played it. But I just feel like after playing The Last of Us Part 2, I just feel like every other game feels so vanilla now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you have any closing thoughts that you want to say before anything?
Not really. I think we summed it up really well. I think Neil Druckmann did a great job along with everyone who worked on the project. I think this is a masterpiece. I think it will age really well. I think people will start to realize that their early prejudices against this game weren't exactly
misguided.
Accurate. Misguided. If they play it again, or like, actually a lot of people that criticize the game haven't actually played it. They just have watched bits of it, or watched streamers play it, or watched YouTube gameplay. But if people actually do spend the time, play it, take their time through it, try to understand what the director is going for, it really is a masterpiece in my opinion.
It is a masterpiece for me too. I think this is not just one of the best video game sequels. It's one of the best. It's my favorite video game of all time. I'm pretty comfortable saying that. This game like messed me up emotionally. In a huge way. And this game destroyed me at the start, but it put me back together by the end. And I just feel like it's an incredibly enriching, thought-provoking game. It's just the subject matter is just so it's just mature storytelling, and I don't think we will ever get a game like this again, like for a long time. And I think I agree with you. I feel like people are going to catch on to the fact that they've missed a lot of this game, especially the people who played through it like within 2 days. This is not a game that you want to like rush through for 2 days. This is a game that you want to savor the moment, because there's so much environmental storytelling that happens in the game that you could have missed, that really gives the world a lot of texture and a lot of atmosphere and personality, And I feel like
I think The Last of Us 2 is going to be a pioneer in the next generation of video games storytelling, and I think it's definitely the benchmark. It's the threshold for what makes a game unique, what makes a game great.
And I do feel like this game is like, a lot of people complain that like it's like bad writing or it's terrible writing, which I can't help but disagree with that. I think this is really good writing. It's just not what you want from the story.
I think good writing is something that everyone won't fully comprehend when they see it. It's below that surface level, and it requires much what The Last of Us 2 did.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not bad writing. It's just like you just don't agree with the choices that it makes. I think we can wrap it up there, right?
Let's wrap it up.
Yeah. That's All right. So, anyways, guys, this is our thoughts on The Last of Us Part 2. What did you guys think about it? And thanks for watching. I wanted to have this conversation and with Enoch in detail, and I felt like I was able to get it out of the system. So this has been incredibly therapeutic. So I just want to say thanks, Enoch. Thanks for joining me.
Gary, thanks for having me.
All right.
Yeah,
well, thanks,
right.
Enoch. All right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Gary. See ya.
Thanks.
A few moments later.
We're spouting out some gems right here, and I feel like maybe I could like. I feel like
it's just when the pressure of like recording and like knowing someone watching is like it gets to me. I kind of stop knowing what to say. But,
I guess so, but that's fine. I'll just leave it recording in case we say anything that's like good and I can use it. Like I wasn't spoiled on anything, thankfully. So I didn't know, like I thought the game was going to be another like Joel and Ellie adventure, which I feel like a lot of people wanted from the game as well, because that's the magic of the first game, right? The magic of the first game is the banter between Joel and Ellie, how like the both those actors have such good chemistry with each other, and I feel like people wanted more of that. There could be an argument to be made that at times it feels like this is the third game. It doesn't really feel like the second game.
People are expecting that middle like section, but they told it in such a unique way where I really loved it, and me and you both loved it, where they, you know, didn't show, they didn't reveal all at the start. Naughty Dog just didn't choose the safe route. The safe route would have been making a game everyone would love, making like really good relationship between Joel and Ellie. Something happens and then it's all sad. It's so confronting. It's devastating. It's emotionally impactful. It's violent. It's not something everyone wants, and it's something that it's much more risky to put out. But in the end, it really paid off for those that paid attention, for those that invested themselves into the game, the characters. And I think actually it was a big payoff for real fans of Joel and Ellie. Like they, even though obviously Joel died, I reckon it was worth the wait. It was worth the all the hype. And I think Neil Druckmann did an amazing job. And I feel like this might be a controversial thing to say, but I almost feel like Joel's death was like the best thing that happened to that character, almost, because maybe you don't have to agree with me on that, but no, I think you're right. It's like he had to die. I think like there's no other way, and I think that making the surgeon's daughter kill him was like, I don't think if you said that to someone before this was released, I think they'll be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But then to actually tell it in such a way to make you play as the person that killed Joel, make you like experience the characters who were there at the hospital, to experience the characters that were impacted by Joel's rampage, and then flipping the coin to see Ellie's side of what Joel did. Exploring, like, and the way she acted towards Joel was perfectly what I thought was going to happen to Joel. Was going to happen to Ellie. Like she hated him. She didn't want to talk to him at all. And then tragically, the last day, she decides she wants to try to forgive him. He gets killed, and it's just it's such a well told story. From Naughty Dog.
Just the emotional, just the, and the one of the most amazing things about this game is that so much of it isn't said. Like they don't spell things out for you in the game.
Exactly.
Like you really, there's so much emotion conveyed without actually saying any of it, you know, and you can sort of read into it yourself. You can sort of project your own feelings onto it. I think that's what's so incredible. I don't see this kind of nuance even in movies sometimes, you know. As
I've been saying, like the characters are just so consistently written. Like you can't. They feel like real people that you've talked to for Ellie is like her personality. Like your friends are, one of them is short-tempered, one of them is funny and stuff like that. Like Ellie is like you can describe her as a person. You know her as someone you've journeyed along, and like you expect her to act and say things in certain ways, right? And she does that. Like the game writing knows. I think it gives credit to the actors and writers that are so invested in these characters that it's part of them. It's part of their writing. It's like Ellie's family to them, and they write this character so well and so consistently, and then bring it to life in a video game. It's just absolutely astounding.
Phenomenal. Yeah. And it's clear like they care about these characters.
Yeah.
Like they clearly
exactly
like I've seen a lot of people say that like, oh, they disrespected Joel and stuff like that, but no, like they really, like you see the level of care. Like Joel is like, by the end of this game, it's like he's become that warm, loving father, like I was saying before, and it's just you love him, as a person, despite his flaws.
And Neil Druckmann even said like nobody loves the character more than me besides Troy Baker. Like Troy Baker, he's Joel. Like he lives and breathes Joel. Like, and they know what's best for him, even though killing him off is obviously not what's best, but like what's best for the narrative, what's best for the storytelling, what's best for good writing. And I think
that shines through.
They've absolutely nailed it. Another point is that Ellie at the end understands, like she gains clarity for a split second when she's about to kill Abby, that Abby has absolutely nothing to do with Joel's personal choice of saving Ellie. She was just the person that Joel killed. Like she was the person that's father is killed by Joel. But in the end, Joel's own choice had nothing to do with Abby. And in that moment, she realizes that, and then she's made peace with Joel, and ultimately lets go of Abby.
Yeah, I think so. And it's funny, right? Because when you look at the ending, when you look at when they go onto the boats together, when Abby is like carrying Lev to the boat, that's almost like a mirror of the ending of the first game. Where you have Joel carrying an unconscious Ellie,
Yeah. She actually carries Lev in the exact same way as Joel carries Ellie.
Exactly, and she's carrying her to safety.
Like her arm hangs out, like her left arm hangs out, same as Lev's arm, and it's just it's poetic.
Yeah. You just see a mirror to that, and obviously Ellie like picks up the knife and she like threatens Lev, and that's the moment where we're gonna subvert this scene. Except we're gonna make Ellie the bad person here. Like she's going to be the bad person.
She's threatening to kill like a child. Like she's gone. Like she's beyond.
Yeah.
But for me, above all else, in the first and the second game, I think the world building is just the best thing about the games. Like we have, this is like some of the best writing I've ever seen. This is some of the best, like directing, acting, but above all, I think the attention to detail and the world building is what really sets it apart. Like I completely believe this world would exist if like a fungal cordyceps would infect people. And it's like it's, you see what humanity would do. Like you would form groups, you would do at all costs to try and survive, kill soldiers, form like a rebellion clan such as the Fireflies, things like that. It's amazing. Like they know how the human psychology works. Like one group would try to do good by trying to find a vaccine. Others are just taking advantage of it and killing people, eating people, like David's group. Like it's so like real. Like, it's just
like the science behind it, right? Everything just feels like, even the time period, because the time period is set in, because it was 2013 when the outbreak
Yeah.
happened. So the world that we're seeing through The Last of Us 2 is basically all of it is like it's lost in that time. It's locked in 2013. So they were able to do like their research team. They were able to make sure that all the items that you see were still like sort of reflective of 2013, that time when the outbreak happened.
Joel's smartphone back then, I remember, it was like a BlackBerry or something.
Yeah.
So accurate. So and in Joel's house, like the picture of him and Sarah, and then next to it was picture of him and Ellie.
Yeah.
That was like really emotional for me. Like I walked up to it and I just stared at those pictures for a while. Like it's so like it's his two daughters and
exactly.
Yeah,
both of them.
It was really emotional for me.
And then you see a book on the desk where it's like space for dummies, essentially.
Yeah.
So you get the sense that he's trying to get good with Ellie again. Like he's still, even though at the time we know they had a fractured relationship.
Yeah.
We know that he's trying to, find his way back into her good book.
That's
again.
the thing. Like a single book in his house
tells
shows
so much.
How much. It shows how much he tried to repair that relationship, and it tells you how much like he tried to be a good father, and like a book about space, like that's nothing, but if you put it all in context, it just makes it so like emotional and so grounded.
All of it links, all of it feels connected. Nothing feels like it's out of left field, it's all
exactly. Nothing feels like out of the blue. Like people are saying that there's so many decisions that come from nowhere, but if you really pay attention, it rewards you so much for paying attention. And it's almost like a reward for like knowing this little fact, and then you kind of know development in one single character. It's just so cool.
Yeah, exactly. And Ellie, a lot of people are like, why is Ellie still on this revenge mission? I don't understand that. Why is she still pursuing with this? Surely she has other things now. No, it's not about that. It's about the fact that she can't let go, She can't let go.
The message that people thought the game was about is revenge is bad. Like, that's so far from what they were trying to do. So a lot of people are just like, oh, it's just about a story of how revenge is bad and we shouldn't do revenge. It's so stupid. Like, that's the most analysis you can have of the game. But I think the game will absolutely age like fine wine. A lot of people will start appreciating it once they start playing it.
Exactly. It starts out like a typical revenge, and I think for some people that's what they wanted. They wanted it to be just a revenge mission, but then wouldn't that just be like any other revenge movies we've seen?
For me, it's a coming of age story ultimately.
Also as well,
For Ellie, it's a coming of age story. It's about her trying to find her identity, her sexuality, her relationships around her, especially with Joel, her father. And that's like any normal teenage girl. Like she, like when you're a teenager, you're kind of rebellious. You don't want to be associated with your parents. But this is taking it to the extreme level where you're in an apocalyptic world. You're fighting to survive. But you know, the human relationships are what matter most in even a world full of survival. And once you see that relationship broken, you can see how far someone will take it. And it's a psychological game.
Exactly. And speaking of sexuality, how amazing is it that we have a game where the lead character is a gay character, right? And then we have another character whose body is like a bodybuilder, which is a body shape we're unused to seeing in a video game. And then we have Lev, who's a trans character, and the game doesn't doesn't make that a huge deal. Like, it's not in your face.
It doesn't force it down your throat. And also, then they're not out of the blue as well. We know Ellie was gay from Left Behind. We know that her and Riley, her best friend that got bitten, like she wants to die for Riley because she was the one that was meant to turn, and not Riley. And like, she sees her best friend turning into this infected thing, and she just wants to die. Like she has no purpose in life. And we see that with Sam as well. Like another friend she just made.
Yeah.
He gets bitten.
Yeah.
And
exactly. Like it's just the representation is so diverse in this game, you know, and you have a girl on girl relationship that's portrayed like a normal relationship, you know, like they kiss, but it's not like they're hiding it, they're not shying away from it, but also not like in your face kind of thing, you know. And I think that's pretty in a AAA title game, you know, pretty mainstream game, I think, because a lot of people have played it. That's just like awesome, you know, especially the Abby having the bodybuilder type physique, you know. People you know, don't realize that there are women out there who are professional bodybuilders and have that kind of body type, you know. So so I just think that's like one thing that we definitely needed to point out.
I don't think it was political at all. Like there was no political intent behind
There's
it.
no SJ. It's just people attaching these things to the game just because they didn't like what they were seeing. And it's a shame. It's a shame because I want more of my games to be like this, you know, to have representation of different people and different different ethnicities, different sexual orientations, things like that. So I think and then I think that's like what's amazing about it. So
I think we can leave it there.
We can leave it there, right?
This for is another like half an hour of
we'll but that's